I'm Amelia, 35 years old, and the weekly family dinner at my parents' sprawling suburban home was always an ordeal, but tonight I thought might be different. I'd spent weeks meticulously crafting a new sculpture, a delicate piece of mixed media that I felt truly captured a part of my soul. I brought it to dinner, carefully wrapped, hoping to finally share a piece of my world with them to bridge the chasm that had always existed. My twin brother, Michael, ever the center of attention, was already holding court at the head of the polished mahogany table, regaling our parents, Sarah and David, with the intricate details of his latest lucrative business deal. He was the golden child, the one whose path was always deemed secure, whose every venture was celebrated with fanfare. I tried to interject, to gently steer the conversation towards my passion, my art, but the words felt swallowed by the opulent dining room. As the main course was cleared, I finally unwrapped my sculpture, placing it carefully on the pristine white tablecloth. My heart pounded with a mix of anticipation and dread. My mother, Sarah, eyed it with a practiced, dismissive glance, a faint, almost imperceptible curl of her lip. The air in the room, already heavy with Michael's self-congratulatory anecdotes, suddenly felt thick and stifling. She let out a dramatic sigh, one I knew all too well, a prelude to judgment. "Amelia, darling," she began, her voice dripping with feigned concern, "all this art takes up so much time. Don't you think it's a bit of a waste?" My father, David, ever the diplomat in appearance though rarely in action, simply cleared his throat and changed the subject, redirecting the spotlight back to Michael's glowing achievements. In that moment, something inside me, a fragile, persistent hope that had stubbornly lingered for decades, finally fractured and gave way. I looked at the sculpture, then at their indifferent faces. I silently picked up my creation, clutching it gently, muttered a quiet "excuse me," and walked out of the dining room, leaving the forced conviviality behind. Have you ever found yourself in a moment where you realized your efforts were truly unseen by those who should matter most? Would you have done the same? Leave a comment below and let me know your thoughts. Like and subscribe to join me on this journey as I explore what happens when you finally choose yourself over long-held expectations. The chill of the autumn night bit at my exposed arms as I stepped into my car, the quiet hum of the engine a welcome relief from the internal cacophony. I clutched the sculpture, its cool, smooth surface a grounding presence in my trembling hands. My mother's words, "a waste of time," played on an endless loop in my mind, each syllable a fresh wound. It wasn't just the words themselves, but the casual, almost breezy way she delivered them, as if discussing the weather. It implied not just a disapproval of my current endeavor, but a fundamental dismissal of my entire being, my passion, my very purpose. It was a familiar refrain, one woven into the fabric of my childhood like a recurring nightmare. Growing up, our colonial-style house was a monument to appearances. From the outside, we were the quintessential American family. Successful father, elegant mother, and two seemingly well-adjusted children. But behind the perfectly manicured lawn and the meticulously chosen decor, a silent, pervasive favoritism festered. Michael, my twin, was the sun around which our family orbited. His academic achievements were lauded with school-wide announcements and framed certificates adorning the living room walls, strategically placed for optimal viewing by visitors. His athletic prowess was championed with roaring applause from the sidelines of every soccer game, every swim meet, and proud recaps at dinner parties, often stretching late into the night. My own quieter victories, the art competitions won, the poetry published in school literary magazines, the meticulously crafted ceramic pieces that won local awards, were met with a polite nod, a faint smile, and a quick redirection of the conversation back to Michael's latest triumph. "That's nice, Amelia," my mother would say, her eyes already scanning the room for Michael, or perhaps the proud glint in my father's eyes. "But Michael just got into the advanced physics class. Quite brilliant, isn't he? We're so proud of his academic rigor." My artistic inclination, which manifested early and intensely, was seen not as a talent to be nurtured, but a whimsical indulgence that needed to be managed, a potential distraction from the serious business of life. While Michael received expensive tutors for math and science, private coaches for his sports, and exclusive summer programs designed to bolster his impressive resume, I was given children's art kits for birthdays, implicitly conveying that my passion was merely a phase, a childish diversion. "Art is a lovely hobby, dear," my mother would often remark, her voice laced with a gentle condescension that stung more than outright criticism, "but Michael's path is more secure. Think of stability, Amelia. Think of a real career like medicine or law, something with tangible benefits." My father, David, a man of few words but profound expectations, echoed her sentiments in his silence. He would attend Michael's school plays, his academic award ceremonies, his sports tournaments, always with a proud, expansive presence, his chest puffed out just a little. For my art shows, my recitals, my poetry readings, he might make a brief appearance, nod vaguely at my work, then retreat to a corner, engrossed in his phone, physically present but emotionally absent. His validation was a currency I could never earn, a treasure reserved exclusively for Michael, who seemed to possess an inexhaustible supply of it. The evening I walked out of the family dinner, leaving my sculpture on the table and Michael's boisterous laughter trailing behind me, wasn't a sudden, impulsive act. It was the culmination of 3 decades of these small, seemingly insignificant slights, each one a drop of acid etching away at my self-worth. It was the weight of 1,000 dismissals, 1,000 comparisons, 1,000 moments where my dreams felt like trivialities in the grand narrative of my family's perfect son. The sculpture, a fragile piece that spoke of growth and resilience, felt profoundly out of place in that home, a splash of vibrant, defiant color against a canvas of muted expectations. I walked through the quiet entryway, past the framed family photos where Michael always stood taller, brighter, more prominent, a gleaming trophy in every shot. The front door closed with a soft click, but in my mind it resonated like a thunderclap, marking not an ending but a desperate, necessary beginning. The cool night air on my face was a balm, a stark contrast to the suffocating warmth of the house I had just left. I knew, with a clarity that both terrified and emboldened me, that I could no longer inhabit a space where my very essence was deemed a waste of time. The drive back to my own small apartment felt endless, the city lights blurring through my unshed tears. My apartment, a modest space above a quiet bakery, was my sanctuary, filled with the scent of warm bread and the vibrant chaos of my art supplies. It was a stark contrast to the sterile perfection of my parents' home, a place where creativity was encouraged, not stifled. Here, my canvases leaned against walls, paint splatters adorned the floor, and the faint smell of turpentine was a comforting perfume. It was here that I truly felt like myself, Amelia the artist, not just Amelia, Michael's twin sister, the family disappointment. Yet even in my haven, the echoes of their dismissals managed to penetrate, whispering doubts in the quiet corners of my mind. I had foolishly clung to a fragile hope that with age, with my own burgeoning career as an artist and gallery owner, their perception of me would change. I thought that opening my own gallery, even a small, independent one, would finally prove my worth. I envisioned them visiting, seeing the passion in my eyes, hearing the compliments from patrons, and finally acknowledging that my chosen path was not a waste. I remember the exhilaration of signing the lease for my gallery space, a former bookstore with large, inviting windows and a charming brick facade. It was a dream realized, built piece by painstaking piece with my own money, my own sweat, and countless hours of tireless work. I'd scraped together every penny, working odd jobs, selling small commissions, foregoing luxuries, all for this. Michael, of course, had received a significant investment from our father for his tech startup, a multi-million-dollar venture, launched with a grand press release and a celebratory dinner. When I tentatively mentioned my gallery to my mother, her response had been swift and dismissive, an elegant eyebrow raised in skepticism. "A gallery, Amelia? Are you sure that's a sound investment? Michael's business, now that's innovative. He's talking about an IPO already." The implication hung heavy in the air, a silent judgment that my ambition was quaint, perhaps even foolish. The family's unwavering faith in Michael's ventures, no matter how risky, was a constant source of bitterness. He could make mistakes, falter, even fail, and it would be brushed off as a learning experience, a minor hiccup on the path to inevitable greatness. But for me, every success was viewed with suspicion, every struggle as definitive proof of my inherent foolishness, my lack of business acumen. I recalled a particularly stressful period when my gallery faced unexpected financial challenges, a burst pipe, a sudden increase in rent. I had swallowed my pride and called my father, hoping for even a small, temporary loan to bridge the gap. His response had been immediate and firm, almost cold. "Amelia, you need to learn to stand on your own 2 feet. Michael, of course, has a more complex financial model. His business requires strategic support, but yours, it's a different scale entirely." The implication was clear. My dreams were too small, too insignificant to warrant their intervention, whereas Michael's, grand and ambitious, were always worth saving, no matter the cost. Even my efforts to connect with them on their terms felt like walking into a minefield. I'd try to engage Michael in conversations about his business, genuinely interested in his success. only for him to turn the topic back to my quirky hobbies or the challenges of the art market. I'd ask my mother about her social engagements, her charity work, trying to find common ground beyond my perceived shortcomings. But inevitably, the conversation would circle back to Michael's latest triumph or my own lack of practicality and financial foresight. The family dinner tonight was just another testament to this unbreakable cycle. I had poured my heart into that sculpture, seeing it as a bridge, a silent plea for understanding, a tangible piece of my soul offered for their consideration. And in return, I received a sigh, a dismissive comment, and the familiar, suffocating feeling of invisibility. The hope I had carried, threadbare and fragile, had finally, irrevocably snapped. As I unlocked my apartment door, the scent of fresh paint and wood dust enveloped me, a comforting embrace. This was my world, my creation, a space where I was finally seen, even if only by myself. And tonight, I realized that was enough. It had to be. The first few days after walking out of that dinner were a blur of raw emotion. Tears came in waves, unexpected and overwhelming, blurring the vibrant colors of my studio into a watery mess. I'd stare at the half-finished canvases, the waiting clay, and feel an emptiness where my usual creative spark resided. Every gentle curve of my discarded sculpture, now sitting sadly on a workbench, its delicate features seeming to sag with my despair, appeared to mock me, a reminder of my vulnerability and their callousness. I knew I needed to process this, to finally confront the decades of emotional neglect that had festered beneath the surface of my seemingly functional life, gnawing at my confidence. My phone, usually a lifeline to my burgeoning art world, felt heavy and ominous in my hand. I had calls from my mother, tight with a strained politeness, her voice thin and clipped as she asked if I was feeling unwell and if I would be at the next family brunch. She made it sound like I had a sudden flu, not a lifetime of emotional wounds. Michael's texts were short and sharp, accusatory and self-righteous, blaming me for making a scene and ruining the mood of their perfectly orchestrated evening. Honestly, Amelia, one read, can't you just for once not make everything about you? It was a family dinner, not your personal drama show. My father remained silent, a silence that spoke volumes, confirming his continued passivity in the face of my mother's cruelty, his refusal to ever step into the fray to defend me. I ignored them all, my thumb hovering over the block button, a desperate battle between the ingrained desire for their approval and the burgeoning, undeniable need for self-preservation. It was Rachel, my best friend since art school, who broke through the fog. Her text arrived, simple and direct. "Are you okay? I'm coming over. Don't say no. I'm bringing coffee and pastries." There was no judgment, only a steady, unwavering presence. Within an hour, Rachel was at my door, her presence a beacon of sanity in my chaotic emotional landscape. Her bright, empathetic eyes met mine, and in them, I saw not pity but understanding. She didn't offer platitudes or try to minimize my pain. She simply listened, her hand gently squeezing my arm as I recounted the dinner, the dismissive sigh, the crushing words, the lifetime of feeling secondary. "Amelia," she said softly, her voice firm but kind, "your mother is emotionally abusive. This isn't normal family behavior. What she said, what they've always done, it's not okay. You've been subjected to this your entire life and you finally stood up for yourself. That's not a scene, that's strength, that's bravery." Her words were a revelation, a mirror held up to a truth I had consciously avoided acknowledging for so long. For so long, I had rationalized their behavior, made excuses for them, blamed myself, always believing I just wasn't good enough, talented enough, or successful enough to earn their love, their approval. Rachel's blunt honesty was a bitter but necessary medicine, stripping away the layers of self-blame and revealing the raw, ugly rot of their toxicity. That night, cradled in Rachel's unwavering support, surrounded by the comforting scent of freshly brewed coffee and the quiet hum of the refrigerator, I made a decision that would redefine my life. I called a therapist, Dr. Winters, whose name Rachel had given me months ago, but who I had been too afraid to contact, too afraid to admit that something was profoundly wrong with my family dynamics. I needed help unraveling the complex knots of my family trauma, to understand why I had so desperately craved validation from those who consistently withheld it. I needed to learn how to truly value myself, independent of their opinion. The next morning, I finally pressed block on my mother's, father's, and Michael's numbers. The immediate sensation was not guilt, not a pang of regret, but a profound, almost physical lightness, as if a great, suffocating weight had been lifted from my chest. It felt like taking my first real breath after years of shallow, suffocated gasps. I looked at the sculpture again, the one I had carried out of their house. No longer did I see a symbol of rejection, but a testament to my newfound courage, a beacon of my defiance. This was not an act of defeat. It was an act of profound self-respect, a declaration that I was finally choosing myself truly and completely. The path ahead was uncertain, stretching out before me like a vast, unexplored canvas, but for the first time in my life, it felt truly mine to forge. With the immediate emotional storm beginning to subside, a quiet sense of resolve settled over me. Blocking my family's numbers felt less like a rebellion and more like a necessary act of self-preservation, a vital boundary finally erected, guarding my fragile peace. My apartment, once a sanctuary from their judgment, now truly felt like a fortress, a space entirely my own where their influence could not penetrate, where their opinions held no sway. Dr. Winters, my new therapist, helped me navigate the labyrinth of my past, session by painful session. In our sessions, she gently guided me through the insidious patterns of emotional manipulation and parental favoritism, helping me understand that their behavior was never a reflection of my worth, but rather a manifestation of their own insecurities, their own unfulfilled desires, and their own limited capacity for unconditional love. It was a difficult, often painful process, peeling back layers of internalized criticism that had become part of my self-identity, a distorted lens through which I viewed myself. I learned to identify the subtle ways their words had chipped away at my confidence, leaving me constantly striving for an elusive, unattainable approval. One evening, while working on a new series of paintings, bold, abstract pieces that pulsed with a vibrant energy unlike anything I had created before, reflecting my newfound freedom, an email notification popped up. It was an invitation from the prestigious Artistic Visions Gallery in New York City, requesting a portfolio submission for a potential solo exhibition. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of disbelief and exhilaration. New York, it was a dream I had barely dared to whisper, a distant, almost unattainable aspiration, a place where true artists made their mark. I had applied months ago during a fleeting moment of optimism and had almost forgotten about it amidst the turmoil of my personal life. This wasn't just an opportunity, it felt like a cosmic validation, a tangible sign that my art, my passion, was truly seen and valued outside the confines of my dismissive family. It was a quiet echo of vindication. I immediately called Rachel, my voice breathless with excitement, barely able to form coherent sentences. "New York, Rachel, can you believe it? They want my portfolio." "For a solo show?" she shrieked with delight on the other end, her joy a pure, unadulterated sound that filled my studio. "Amelia, this is incredible. This is it. This is what you deserve. You've worked so hard for this." Her enthusiasm was infectious, a pure, unwavering joy that felt like a healing balm to my long-wounded soul. Together, we meticulously curated my digital portfolio, selecting pieces that spoke of resilience, transformation, and the raw, unvarnished beauty of human emotion. The process was exhilarating, each click of the mouse, each uploaded image, a step further away from the suffocating expectations of my past, a step closer to the future I was finally building for myself. I felt a surge of confidence I hadn't known existed, a quiet conviction that my work, my voice, truly mattered. The video interview with the gallery director, Mr. Davies, was nerve-wracking but ultimately empowering. His presence on the screen was calm and professional, yet infused with a genuine warmth. He spoke with genuine admiration about my unique style, my innovative use of mixed media, and the profound emotional depth he found in my pieces. He didn't ask about my family, my background, or my financial stability. He asked about my artistic vision, my creative process, and my aspirations as an artist. It was a conversation solely focused on my talent and my future, a stark contrast to the dismissive inquiries and veiled criticisms I had grown accustomed to from my own parents. When he offered me a solo exhibition, effective in 6 months, with a generous advance that would more than cover my expenses, I felt a lightness I hadn't experienced in years. It was as if a decades-long weight had finally been lifted, replaced by the exhilarating promise of a new beginning, a profound testament to the fact that choosing myself was not an act of defeat, but a powerful declaration of self-worth. The 6 months leading up to the Artistic Visions exhibition in New York were a whirlwind of creative energy and tireless dedication. My studio became my entire world, a vibrant, chaotic hub of creation. Canvases stacked against every wall, some dripping with fresh paint, others waiting for the next layer. The air was thick with the invigorating scent of oil paint, turpentine, and possibility. I poured every ounce of my being into the new collection, each piece a defiant response to years of being told my art was a waste of time. I explored themes of self-discovery, resilience, liberation, and the bittersweet beauty of transformation. I painted late into the nights, fueled by strong coffee and an unyielding passion, often losing track of time as I wrestled with form and color, translating my inner world onto the canvas. Rachel was my constant companion and cheerleader, a steadfast anchor in the swirling current of my burgeoning success. She'd come over with takeout, listen patiently to my creative frustrations, offer insightful critiques, and simply be there, a comforting, unwavering presence. The day of the exhibition opening arrived, a crisp autumn evening in New York, the city lights twinkling like 1,000 promises. The gallery, a sleek, modern space in Chelsea, with its high ceilings and polished concrete floors, was transformed into a vibrant sanctuary for my work. Spotlights illuminated each piece, highlighting textures and colors I'd painstakingly brought to life, casting dramatic shadows that enhanced their three-dimensional quality. Standing there amidst the buzz of art enthusiasts, collectors, and curious passersby, I felt a profound sense of accomplishment, a quiet, deep satisfaction. Mr. Davies moved among the crowd, his face beaming with pride as he introduced me to various art critics and collectors, speaking effusively about my talent and unique voice. Their words of praise, their genuine curiosity about my artistic journey, were like a balm to my long-wounded soul. "Your use of light is extraordinary, Amelia," one critic remarked, studying a large abstract piece with an intensity that made my heart swell. "There's a raw honesty in your work that's truly captivating. It speaks of a deep emotional landscape." These were the words I had craved from my parents for decades, the validation I had so desperately sought, but now, hearing them from strangers who genuinely appreciated my art, they resonated with an authentic power that transcended any need for familial approval. This success, this recognition, was mine, earned solely by my own merit. Midway through the evening, as the gallery hummed with conversation, laughter, and the clinking of champagne glasses, my phone, which I rarely checked during important events, buzzed with an unfamiliar number. It was a call from a distant cousin, a sweet, quiet woman named Clara who had always been kind, though we rarely spoke, our lives having diverged years ago. I stepped away from the crowd, finding a quiet corner near a large, minimalist sculpture, curious and with a faint sense of trepidation. "Amelia, darling," Clara's voice was hushed, almost a whisper, laced with a mix of shock and concern. I didn't know who else to call. "Have you heard about Michael?" My heart hitched in my chest, a sudden, cold dread washing over me. I hadn't spoken to Michael or our parents in months, a deliberate choice I had made to protect my peace. "No, Clara," I replied, a knot forming in my stomach. "What about him? Is he okay?" Clara then revealed a stunning, almost unbelievable truth. Michael's much-lauded tech startup, the one our parents had poured millions into, the one that had been held up as the epitome of success and stability, the family's crown jewel, had spectacularly collapsed. Not just a minor setback, but a complete, catastrophic implosion, riddled with accusations of financial mismanagement and even fraud. "It's everywhere, Amelia," Clara continued, her voice tinged with a mix of shock and perhaps a subtle hint of schadenfreude, though she tried to mask it. "The news, social media, the business journals, it's a complete disaster. Your father's investments, everything he put in, gone. Your mother is beside herself, absolutely distraught. They're facing huge losses, legal battles, everything is in disarray. It's a total scandal." A strange, complex mix of emotions swirled within me. Initial shock, a pang of something akin to pity for their misfortune, and then a profound, undeniable sense of karmic justice. All those years, their unwavering faith in Michael, their dismissive attitude towards my wasteful art, their constant belittling of my path in favor of his secure one. And now, the very foundation of their perceived success had crumbled dramatically and publicly for all the world to see. The bitter irony was almost poetic in its precision. My art, once deemed insignificant, was now flourishing in a prestigious New York gallery, attracting acclaim and success, while Michael's grand, practical venture had imploded, leaving behind a trail of ruin. The universe, it seemed, had a very specific and rather dramatic way of balancing the scales. The news of Michael's spectacular downfall hung over me like an unsettling cloud, even amidst the triumph of my exhibition. My opening night, which should have been a moment of unadulterated joy, was tinged with the strange, complex emotions that only a deeply dysfunctional family can evoke. It was a victory, yes, but also a stark reminder of the wreckage I had left behind, or perhaps simply avoided. I received more hushed calls and sympathetic texts from extended family members in the days that followed, all confirming Clara's account and adding new, damning details about the scale of Michael's financial mismanagement. Stories of reckless spending, overinflated valuations, and a general disregard for ethical practices filtered through. It was a public spectacle, the kind of dramatic failure that dominates news cycles and fuels gossip for months in the tight-knit circles they inhabited. My father's substantial investments, once untouchable, built over decades of his own hard work, were now gone, swallowed by Michael's hubris and questionable decisions. My mother, who had so meticulously curated their image of success and perfection, was reportedly devastated, not just by the financial loss, but by the shattering of their carefully constructed facade, the public humiliation. A week after the exhibition opened, as my art continued to receive glowing reviews and interest from collectors, my phone rang with a number I hadn't seen in months, a number I had blocked then unblocked in a moment of weakness, only to reblock again. Michael, I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the decline button, my heart thudding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to maintain the protective barrier I had so painstakingly built around myself. But a morbid curiosity and perhaps a faint flicker of the old, almost forgotten twin connection compelled me to answer. His voice, usually confident, booming, and filled with a swaggering self-importance, was now thin, reedy, almost unrecognizable, tinged with desperation. "Amelia," he rasped, I need your help, please, it's an emergency." I listened in stunned silence as he recounted his dire situation, a dramatic monologue of ruin, the lawsuits, the public shame, the complete financial ruin. He had lost everything, including, he admitted with a hint of shame, the last of our parents' liquid assets, which he had convinced them to invest in a last-ditch attempt to save his sinking ship. He was desperate, facing imminent bankruptcy, social ostracism, and legal repercussions, and had no one else to turn to. He even admitted that our parents were in a state of shock and despair, unable to provide any further assistance, drowning in their own financial and emotional woes. "I know I haven't been a good brother," he stammered, the words clearly painful for him to utter, almost like he was choking on them. "I know I mocked your art and I was wrong, I was arrogant. I believed our parents that my path was superior, that only my kind of success mattered. But now I have nothing, absolutely nothing left. And you, your gallery, your success, it's real, it's tangible. You built something solid." His words, a desperate plea for assistance, were also an unwitting, perhaps even subconscious, acknowledgement of my validity, my worth. It was the first time I had ever heard such a concession from him, a raw, unvarnished admission of his own fallibility. He asked for a loan, a substantial sum enough to cover his immediate legal fees, prevent foreclosure on his lavish apartment, and provide for his basic living expenses. He promised to repay me, to finally recognize my art, to be a true brother, a genuine sibling. He swore he had changed, that this experience had humbled him. I didn't give him an immediate answer. After the call, I sat for a long time, staring at my newest painting, a vibrant canvas depicting a phoenix rising from ashes, its wings spread wide, a symbol of resilience and rebirth. The irony was almost unbearable, a sharp, bitter taste in my mouth. The wasteful artist, the one who pursued a frivolous hobby, was now the one being sought out for financial salvation by the secure businessman, the golden child. I thought about all the times they had denied me support, financial or emotional, always prioritizing Michael's grand ambitions, always believing he was the safer, surer bet. I thought about the sting of my mother's words, the dismissive sigh, the crushing feeling of being invisible, their constant lectures about my lack of practicality. But then, I thought about Dr. Winter's words. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. It means releasing yourself from the burden of anger. Helping Michael now, giving him money, would mean inviting that toxic dynamic back into my life, potentially derailing the fragile peace and confidence I had worked so hard to build, the hard-won independence I now cherished. The decision was agonizing, a battle between an old, deeply ingrained desire to finally be the good daughter who saved her family, who proved her worth by being indispensable, and the newfound, fiercely protective commitment to protect my own well-being, my own future. The phone call was a jarring reminder of the past, but also a stark illustration of how much my own life had transformed, how far I had come from the shadowed girl who craved their validation. The choice weighed heavily on me for several days. Michael's desperate plea echoed in my mind, a sharp, disorienting contrast to the confident, dismissive brother I had known for decades. My success in New York, the glowing reviews for my exhibition, the genuine connections I was forming within the art community, all of it felt fragile against the sudden intrusion of my family's crumbling world. It was as if their chaos was trying to pull me back into its gravitational pull, threatening to undo all the progress I had made. I spent days wrestling with the decision, consulting with Rachel, who listened patiently and offered unwavering support, and reflecting deeply in my therapy sessions with Dr. Winters. Rachel, ever practical and fiercely protective, urged caution. "Amelia," she said, her voice firm, "his desperation doesn't erase years of neglect and abuse. This is a chance for you to finally prioritize yourself, to not fall back into old patterns of trying to save them." "They never saved you." Dr. Winters echoed this sentiment, emphasizing that true healing meant setting boundaries, even if it felt uncomfortable, even if it meant not being the savior my family had never allowed me to be nor deserved. The truth was, I had built a new life, a vibrant tapestry woven with threads of self-acceptance, genuine friendship, and authentic artistic expression. My New York gallery, Amelia's Visions, was thriving, drawing in new collectors and enthusiasts every day, buzzing with creative energy. I was planning workshops for aspiring artists, collaborating with other talented creators, and finally feeling a profound sense of purpose that transcended any need for external validation. My chosen family, Rachel, Mr. Davies, and the gallery staff who treated me with respect, my new artist friends who understood my world, and even some loyal patrons who believed in my vision, offered a support system far more profound and unconditional than anything my biological family had ever provided. They celebrated my successes without reservation and offered comfort without judgment, a stark contrast to the conditional love I had always known. One crisp autumn morning, as the city began to stir with the promise of a new day, I made my decision. I called Michael. My voice was steady, calm, devoid of the raw emotion that had plagued me for so long. "Michael," I said, my voice clear and unwavering, "I'm sorry, but I can't give you the loan." I heard his sharp intake of breath on the other end, a desperate gasp. "Amelia, please, you're my last hope. What about family? What about blood?" he pleaded, his voice cracking. "I know this is difficult for you, Michael," I continued, my voice unwavering, my resolve hardened by years of pain and recent healing. "But I've spent years rebuilding my life, my self-worth, after living in the shadow of your perceived superiority and our parents' constant favoritism and dismissal. I cannot jeopardize that for you. You have to face the consequences of your actions, just as I've had to face the consequences of theirs, alone." I offered him the names of pro bono legal services and financial counselors, practical assistants, but refused to financially enable him or allow him to drag me back into the toxic family dynamic that had almost consumed me. I heard him sigh, then a defeated I understand, before he hung up, the line going silent. The call, though difficult, brought a wave of profound relief, a confirmation that I was, finally, truly choosing myself, honoring my own well-being above all else. A few weeks later, Michael's public scandal intensified, leading to formal criminal charges and widespread media coverage that exposed the full extent of his deceit. My parents, now facing their own legal battles due to their complicity and significant financial losses, became increasingly isolated, their social standing crumbling around them. My mother's attempts to contact me evolved from desperate pleas to angry accusations, blaming me for Michael's downfall, claiming I abandoned him in his time of need. My father's silence remained unbroken, a testament to his continued inability to confront their dysfunction. I maintained my boundaries, declining all calls and messages, choosing instead to focus on my thriving career and the genuine connections I had cultivated. That Thanksgiving, instead of the strained, superficial family dinner at my parents' house, I hosted a lively gathering in my New York apartment with Rachel and my new friends, a true, chosen family who celebrated me for exactly who I was without conditions or comparisons. The scent of roasted vegetables and warm spices filled the air, mingled with genuine laughter and heartfelt conversations. I looked around at the faces of these people who valued me, who saw my art, who lifted me up. I felt a gratitude so deep it brought tears to my eyes. The path that had led me here was painful, filled with rejection and heartache, but I would walk it again to arrive at this place of authentic connection and profound self-acceptance. I had learned that sometimes walking away is not an act of defeat, but of profound self-respect. Have you ever experienced a similar situation where you had to choose between deeply ingrained family expectations and your own well-being? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please make sure to subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to prioritize your own healing and build a life where you are truly valued. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, your worth is not defined by the approval of others, especially those who fail to see your true light.